Hello dear friends, with you Nai. The mod called Hex Paradise was updated not so long ago, and this new thing seemed very interesting to me, so today I will introduce you to it. For those who don't know, it's fashionable witchcraft for the version of the mine 1.18.1, and with the latest update and 1.18.2. If you haven't seen the main review of this mod yet, then I advise you to follow the pop-up link and be sure to take a look. Well, the main theme of the update is familiars. In the recent update 0.1.15, the first domesticated creatures appeared crows. And by the way, there are many more such creatures planned. So, crows have been added to the modpack, that is, birds that are very often associated with witches and witchcraft. These birds spawn in the woods and look very cool. But they are made not just as atmospheric mobs, but so that we have a real witch's assistant, a familiar. And that's why we have to tame the crow. But to tame it, we will have to craft a special grain mixture. It is being crafted in a mortar, and to create it, we will need as many as 5 types of seeds: wheat, pumpkin, watermelon, beetroot, and sage. In order to make the mixture, you need to put the seeds with the right mouse button in the mortar. If the proportion of ingredients is correct, then the pestle itself will begin to mix the seeds. If not, then nothing will happen. You can pull out the wrong ingredients with the right mouse button with an empty hand in a squat, but the prepared mixture is simply right-clicked. In general, you'd better make more of this mixture right away, because crows sometimes eat a lot before they get tamed. As I said, you can find wild crows in any forests. There they sometimes live in whole flocks. To tame crows, you need to either feed them from your hands with the right mouse button, or throw the grain mixture on the ground. When you tame them, they get covered with hearts and start following you, and sometimes sit on your shoulder like parrots. At the same time, 2 crows can sit on your shoulders at the same time, each on one side. If you want to reset them, then you need to sit down. However, in the following mode, they will sit down again after some time. Now let's see what we can do to distinguish our crows. Well, besides giving them a name, cats and dogs have collars, but crows have a handkerchief around their necks, but it initially does not seem to be there, or it is not visible. To make it appear, you need to click the die on the crow. You see, now my crows have colorful handkerchiefs. But in fact, this is not all. You can use a name tag to give a crow the name Jeb, just like a sheep. And the handkerchief will shimmer with all the colors of the rainbow. But that's not all, because the Hex Paradise community offered the developer to make the colors flicker not just, but also in certain tones, or rather in the tones of BT symbols. And the developer said, easy. And now, if you call the crows certain names, they will flicker in the colors of certain flags. But before that, it is necessary to give the crow a bandana, that is, paint it. And these names are Trans, Bi, and Len. You can also call the crow Joe, which actually means an ordinary guy in slang, and your bird will shimmer exclusively in blue boyish tones. And if you have already started to snigger maliciously to yourself, thinking about the poor blue bird, then rejoice early. The word blue does not have the same meaning in English as in Russian, and blue are considered the colors of the most ordinary straight guys. Here is such an interesting Easter egg. Crows, in addition to vanilla commands to follow, stay in place, and wander, also have unique commands, namely the assistant commands. By right-clicking on a crow, you will change its behavior, just as you change the behavior of domestic cats and dogs. In the middle, you will see which command is given to your crow. So, she can follow, sit, and wander, but in addition, she also has a mode to help. And in this mode, the crow will do what you separately order it to do. And in order to order separately, you need to go to her interface. This is done again with the right mouse button, but this time in a squat. Now let's look at everything that is here. As you can see, the crow icon and its name are displayed on top. Then, There are 3 slots called hand, hat, and different. So, the hand is actually not a hand at all, but a beak. In the beak, the bird can take different objects, in particular weapons. But about that later. Then, you can put any cap or helmet on your funnel, and they will be displayed on your head. So you can single out the most beloved crows from the rest, and most importantly strengthen their protection. And the 3rd slot is different. Currently not used, but will be further processed into a slot for special equipment. So in fact, a crow can only carry objects in its beak, well, and a hat on his head. Then, we see 2 large buttons that show the behavior that the crow will follow. It is determined by the icons that are located under these buttons. The group of buttons on the left duplicates the same commands that you give to the crow with your hand in the world, that is to follow, sit, wander, and help. And the 3 buttons on the right determine exactly how the crow will help you. And here we are given a choice to pick up items, harvest, and steal. In other words, to make the crow work, you need to choose the help mode on the left and the type of help on the right. Well, let's start from the end. Let the crow steal from us. She can steal from villagers who have something to steal. Depending on the profession, crows will carry those items that are trading lots. And besides, they can steal emeralds. They will throw the stolen items on the ground, where you or other crows will be able to pick them up. But we'll talk about this later. The next command is to harvest. To harvest a crop in the crow's view is to pull it out of the ground and throw it right there. Fortunately, crows are smart enough and do not just pull everything that is stuck in the ground, but still only mature plants. In addition, they harvest crops so neatly that the land still remains sown. So you do not need to run and urgently sow the fields again. Crows will harvest within a radius of 24 blocks from the roost. What is a perch and where to get it? We'll come back to that later. But, in addition to the harvest in the fields, crows will also collect witchy flowers from fashion and glowing berries. They are not able to collect pumpkins and watermelons yet, but in the future they may have this function. Well, the remaining team is to pick up items. And we will dwell on this command in more detail. Crows should pick up items at the same distance as they harvest, that is, within a radius of 24 blocks from the roost. But if you just expose a crow to collect items, for example, next to a field where another crow is harvesting, then you will find that for some reason it is idling and does not even think about picking up anything. It's not a tank at all. The fact is that the crow collects items, not just anywhere, but necessarily in a casket, which also needs to be placed somewhere in the radius of action. But even if you have placed the casket, the crow will still not work, because the casket still needs to be set to the correct mode of operation. You have to go to the interface of the casket and click on the icon with the crow at the bottom here. This means that crows have to carry objects here. But that's not all. You should also put the casket, samples of those items that the crows should carry. For example, if you have a field sown with wheat, then accordingly, you need to put wheat seeds and wheat itself there. In addition to the fact that crows are able to execute commands, they will also protect you as loyal dogs, as well as attack those whom you attack. In order for the crows to fight better, you can give them weapons in their beak, including enchanted ones. And if you call a crow Thor, like this, in Latin letters with a capital letter, without underlining, and give her a hammer in her beak, then she will shimmer like a charged creeper. It's funny that crows fight even sitting on your shoulders. I must admit that it can be somewhat inconvenient to expose crows to work individually, especially if you need to quickly change the team for a large flock of birds. Therefore, the developer came up with a wonderful tool for us called the Crow Flute. This tool is not as easy to use as it may seem at first glance. Therefore, Now we are going to consider it in detail. To start crafting, 3 mahogany boards and 2 dies are involved in crafting the flute. Dies can be absolutely any, including 2 different ones. Depending on what dies you used, this color will be the rings on the flute. And for lovers of all the shimmering and iridescent and other psychedelics, of course, you can get a flute with shimmering rings of different colors. To do this, you need to call it a standard jab in the anvil. And of course, you can also get BT symbols, similarly renaming it by lay, trans, and jo. But the colors of the flute are rather a pleasant addition than the main advantage. We need the flute first of all to give commands to the crows. To enter its interface, you need to sit down and right-click. At the top, you will see an icon with the image of a flute, and just below its name or name, if any, has been assigned. And then there are all the same commands that we saw when we looked at the Raven interface. That is, here, we can choose what the crows should do, and it will be distributed immediately to the group. Moreover, it can be either just a group of crows located in the range of the flute, or a group of certain crows tied to the flute. So, let's say our crows have scattered around, and we need to catch them and put them in their places. Then, we first select this first command, follow, and then exit the interface through the escape and right-click. The flute makes a sound, and we see an inscription that appears about how many crows have switched to the following mode. Note that if the flute is not tied to specific crows, then its radius of action is 64 blocks. So, you may have to run around a little and blow the flute a few times, collecting your birds. If the flute is tied to crows, then it will act at any distance, as long as the crows are in loaded chunks. When the crows follow, they can either fly after you, or if they are too far away, you walk like dogs or cats. Then, we were going to put all our crows on the ground so that they would not fly anywhere. Then we sit down again and right-click, go into the interface, and this time, select the second button, sit. We go out and blow again. All the crows will sit on the ground. Of course, when you use the third button, you will let your crows roam around. Similarly, you can plow your crows to harvest or rob the villagers. But that's not all. You can attach up to 9 specific crows to each flute, and then the action will not apply to everyone who is nearby, but only to those who are attached to this particular flute. In addition, the same bird can be tied to different flutes, and soon you will understand why it is necessary. Let's tie up these birds of mine for clarity. I specially painted them in different colors and gave out matching hats to make them easier to distinguish. First, we need to press this key, select. This way you enter the bird selection mode. Now that the key is kind of drowned, we exit the interface and right-click on those crows that we want to tie to the flute. If they have names, then you will see a message by name that a bird with such a name is tied to a flute. When you tie 9 pieces, the 10th one will not be selected. If you tied someone by mistake or changed your mind about tying, then in the same mode, go and click on the crow again, and it will untie. It's not necessary to link all 9 at once. You can then add someone to this group, but let's say we have decided and we want this group to remain tied to this particular flute. Then we go into the flute interface again and click on the same button again so that it stops being highlighted. And you can see the icons of all your selected crows at the bottom. Now, when you blow this flute, its commands will apply exclusively to these birds. This way you can group the birds into different commands and give them different orders. For example, you can make a separate flute for warbirds, a separate one for picker birds, a separate one for thieves, and so on. In addition, the same bird can belong to different groups. The main thing is not to get confused. Make flutes of different colors and give them different names. But this is not the limit of the flute's capabilities. We have another button. It's called the perch. Of course, there is no physical nest or perch, but with the help of it, you can determine, so to speak, the point of the house for the bird. Moreover, you can make one point at home for the whole group, or create an individual one for each bird individually. But since we have already created a group, let's first make a roost for everyone together. To do this, we need to drown this key. Thus, we enter the mode of determining the point of the house or perch. Now we exit the interface and right-click on the block where we decided the crows should return. We will see a hologram of a cube floating above the block. If this place suits us, then in the Flute interface, you need to press the perch key again so that it stops being highlighted. If now we order our flock to sit, then it will fly and sit down not just anywhere on the ground, but exactly on this place. Moreover, if the crows had a command to steal and there is a roost point for them, then before throwing the object away, the crow will fly here and sit with the object in its beak for a while before throwing it and flying on to its bandit trade. Well, now let's make an individual perch for each bird. To do this, we first need to clear the Flute list. We enter the perch mode and click on this cross in the middle. That's it. There are no more roosts for birds. Now we enter the bird selection mode and also click on the cross. And then the list of tied birds is also deleted, and the Flute becomes like a new one. After that, we need to tie one bird, choose a point at home for it, and immediately after that untie the bird from the Flute. The fact that you untied the bird from the Flute does not mean that you untied the point of the house from the bird. The point of the house has been preserved for her. It's just that until the bird is tied to the Flute, you don't see it. Repeat the procedure for all of our birds in turn. By the way, if your birds are painted, then the holograms of the roosts will be for them in color. If they are called Easter names, then the holograms will shimmer accordingly. Well, if the crows are not painted, then the colors of the roosts will be given out based on the tasks that were given to the crows last. However, this is no longer so obvious. At the end, when you have determined the roosts for each and every bird, you need to take and tie the whole group to the Flute again. Then, they will execute commands together, but each will have its own perch. Of course, at first you may find this system a little tricky, but I'm sure that with a little practice, you will quickly get used to it. A little more about the wonderful birds crows. As I said, they are tamed with a mixture of seeds. By the way, they will follow this mixture if you hold it in your hands. But in fact, crows are omnivorous, and if they are injured, they can eat absolutely any food, in particular, rotten ones too. Moreover, if a crow is injured, and she has found something edible somewhere, then she will pick it up herself, eat it, and thus be treated. This is especially convenient if crows, for example, fight with zombies, from which rotten things fall. But keep in mind that it's not all that simple. The fact is that crows pick up objects with their mouths, and if fighting crows have weapons in their teeth, they will not be able to pick up food, and therefore you will have to monitor their health yourself. By the way, it is very easy to pick up any object, in particular weapons, from a crow. To do this, you do not need to go to her interface, just right-click on her, and she drops the object herself. So you can snatch weapons from crows right on the fly, after which they will be able to eat. Crows breed very cool. To do this, you need to give one of them a piece of gold. She will go and give it to another crow, literally pass it from beak to beak. And it looks really nice. After that, they will have a small raven, which will be immediately tame and flying. And he can even work, including wearing hats and weapons. Well, I've told you about crows, and I'll say a few words about other, albeit small, but still very remarkable changes. The first is that broom bags can now be painted and repainted according to the principle of vanilla leather. So you can have handbags, well, just all kinds of colors. The second one is jars for plants. Previously, you had to sign the jars in the anvil. Now you can do it too, but you can also not do it. If you put plants in a jar, by right-clicking in the middle of the label. The name of the plant that you put there will be written on the label itself. If you right-click on the side, you will immediately open the interface of the jar. Well, and some Easter eggs appeared for the brooms. First of all, these are of course all the same names: Jeb, Joy, Bee, Forest, and Trance. That is, by assigning the panicles such names in the anvil, you will get a panicle that flickers with different colors. Moreover, note that they look a little different in Novite and Mahogany panicles. But in addition, there are two more Easter names for them. One of them is Sanji Bolt 8. If you call a panicle like that, then yellow particles will shimmer over it. The second name is a 5 Bolt, and red particles will already shimmer on the panicles with this name. By the way, both names are a reference to Harry Potter and Quidditch brooms. Well, here, I have introduced you to the updates of the Hexerei mod. Personally, the crows made a very good impression on me. I was pleased that they are able to perform various tasks, and I want even more of these witch familiars. And they, by the way, are in the plans of the developer. He is also going to refine the crows even more. In particular, there is an idea to add various rare colors to them, but it will be implemented or not, we'll wait and see. Easter eggs in fashion are also top. Personally, it warms my soul very much how a fashion developer communicates with his community, and what a close interaction they have. In addition, I don't know about you, but I was personally pleased with the transition to version 1.18.2, since it is more popular with fans of making mod builds. So we will closely monitor the development of this wonderful mod. By the way, as always, you will find all the necessary links in the description under the video. Well, dear friends, be sure to write your thoughts about fashion. Maybe you also have some interesting ideas that could be offered to the author of fashion. And what other familiars would you like to see for witches? And what do you think they should do? Personally, it seems to me that witches must have rats and black cocks in their service. But on the other hand, maybe this is too much. What do you think? I am waiting for your comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and don't forget to like it, because I tried very hard. And that's it for today. See you soon. Bye bye.